Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more relationship stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Let's crack on with today's first story, which comes from a throwaway account. And before we do get into today's story, I do want to mention that there is mentions of suicide within the story, so if you do want to skip the story, please feel free to do so. Timestamps are down in the description and along the timeline below. Let's crack on with it. The title is, My 28 male, wife 27 female, left me for 3 months and recently begged me to take her back. I said no, and everyone seems to be against me. I need some advice, strangers. Well, let me give you some background information, as the situation will be hard to understand without it. 7 years ago, I got married to the girl of my dreams, Denise, fake name. We had been dating for 2 years before that, and it was like a dream come true. That changed after our marriage. After our marriage, she constantly started feeling down and out of it, and eventually I got her to go to a doctor, who sent her to a therapist, and from there we found out she had depression, to do with things from her past that she was trying to forget. I decided to be as supportive as I could be. I took care of most of the housework, despite working 40 hours a week, and told her to just get herself in order, and if she needed to talk to me, I would be there for her. That was 6.5 years ago. Before she left, she was still depressed. She basically only lays in bed and complains. She does nothing. We had no intimacy, no sex, no cuddles, no going out. My entire day was filled with work and housework. Day in and day out, I worked my ass off. Came home to a mess of a house and started cleaning up, starting dinner, and so forth. At the end of the day, I was exhausted, and all I could expect was for Denise to unload more of her troubles on me and complain about herself, me, and everything around her. I could not even hang out with my buddies to get away from it all, as she would relentlessly call me, saying she was scared and everything, so I had no social life. Not that I had time for it anyway. But despite it all, I pushed through, hoping that sooner or later she would break out of it and we could have a proper life together. As I loved her, and as they say, for better and worse. This was quite clearly worse, possibly the worst it would ever be. 4 months ago, she got a new therapist, and 3 months ago that therapist suggested she needed time away from me, as her depression started when we married, so I may be the cause of it. The moment she told me, I was crushed. I started doubting myself, blaming myself and worrying. But beneath it all, this creeping sense of having done everything for her, having sacrificed years of my life as a cash cow and a servant for her to lay in bed, and this is my thanks. It is my fault now. But I rejected that feeling, trying to talk through it, but she decided to leave and stay with her mother, saying that she needed time away from me and that I may be the cause of her depression and so forth. Honestly, the entire argument is a blur in my head. I spent the next month when she moved out calling her, her family, begging and humiliating myself just to get her back, apologizing for everything I may have done wrong. Honestly, I was close to ending it all, as I was so hopeless at that point. But that month passed, and as it passed I couldn't help but feel relieved. I came home and it was quiet. I could indulge in my hobbies, which I had not done in years. The place was not a mess every time I came home. I could relax, and 2 months in, I even realized I could hang out with my buddies again, grabbing a beer, enjoying life, and slowly I started to realize that I'd been miserable this entire time. Slowly that turned into more and more realizations before I realized I honestly did not love her anymore. I felt like my youth was wasting away. I could do much, much better than this. I felt like I was a caretaker of a handicapped old lady. Hell, I still looked good, and as I went out, I started once again gaining back my self-confidence. Women would flirt with me. I felt wanted, even though I never did flirt back. After all these realizations, I suddenly got a call from my wife, saying she made a huge mistake. She was sobbing her eyes out and how she was an idiot, taking therapist's words as fact, and how much she loved me. For a moment, I wanted to say yes. Yes, please come back. But I couldn't. I just blurted it out and said to her she had left me and I was done with this relationship. I told her I would get divorce papers, and I told her I wasted enough time as it was, and this final action of hers was the nail in the coffin. After that, I just dropped the phone, started crying for a bit before turning in and feeling liberated. The issue now is that everyone in my family is telling me I am making a mistake. I should take her back. I owe it to her to try and make it work. Marriage is not always fun, etc. The thing is, I never had fun in this marriage. I can't remember the last time I had fun and wasn't miserable. We are both young and fit and we never even go out. Hell, the last time we had sex is over a year ago. All I am to her is a fucking servant, as it seems, and I'd rather live long than spend one more hour taking care of her. But on the other hand, I doubt myself. Am I really dumping someone that is depressed? I feel horrible about it. I feel like a failure. I just need advice. Edit. Wow, I stepped away from my phone for a while and returned to a ton of comments. Thank you all so much. I will try to read them all. Edit 2. While I have a hard time defending my wife right now, let me clarify something that is popping up in some comments. I know for a fact that she did not sleep around with anyone while we are separated. And we do have some comments which OP replies to and a full update as well. So we're going to start with the comments. We're going to start with Trexstein, who says, also, the only person who knows what is best for you is you. Those other people were not in your relationship. They have no idea what it was like. Just do what is best for you. You've put yourself to the side for years. And OP responded saying, I just finally have time for myself. It feels like heaven and I'm not even doing anything special. Just finally getting home and playing a game again, reading a book, cooking food I like, having a drink with friends, socializing, getting attention from women. It just feels amazing. Campbell says, no, absolutely not. You have clear evidence that your health and happiness are 10 times better when you are not in that relationship. I have debilitating mental health issues and I would never treat my husband like that or blame him for my depression. It's a cruel and awful thing to say to someone who is taking care of you full time. I don't care that she was blindly listening to her therapist. She should have taken 1 minute to think about the relationship from your perspective. You cannot control her actions or behavior, but you can control your boundaries with her. Put up those walls and do not let anyone tear them down. Not her or family. Be selfish and do what is best for you. OP responded saying, I think I have been horribly unhappy for years, but her leaving just sort of was the straw that broke the camel's back. LaRue says, you are not the cause of her mental health issues. You were supportive and tried to help her. She didn't want the help. You can't control that. It sounds like you've mentally and emotionally checked out, and that's okay. You deserve to be happy and to have a partner who doesn't blame you for their issues. You are young. Move on with your life and find happiness, whether that's alone or in another relationship. OP responds saying, yeah, that's another thing. I already feel like I wasted a lot of my youth by this point. At this age, I was hoping to have a nice family and kids, not taking care of an adult full time, eating, working, and sleeping. Kinky Scum says, you are fully justified to never take her back. Depression sucks, yes, but she clearly didn't do anything to try to get better. You cannot treat depression by giving in and having someone enable you. No offense, you were just doing what you thought would help. She's been like this for too long. You haven't been happy at all. Please leave and enjoy your freedom. OP responds again saying, hell, I just figured I was giving her room to work on herself, but I may have been enabling her. And one more comment from Snorlax, who says, depression sucks. I'm a sufferer myself, but I love my husband and family so much that I fight like hell to get better. Do I succeed all the time? No. Depression or not, I would never treat a person like you have been treated. She's a grown-up. She needs to take responsibility for her own recovery. And it was that last comment that struck me, and when I got diagnosed with depression myself, which was leading up to finding out about my mum being ill basically, and only having like a few weeks to live. And it just reminded me of the feelings that I felt at that particular time when everything was going on. It just felt like you was like in fog is the only way I could explain it. And I had some pretty dark thoughts at the time. I went to the doctor, got diagnosed, and was on, I think it was sertraline at the time. And obviously I'm just talking from my experience here. I'm not trying to give suggestions or anything like that. But after a few weeks, it was like the fog was lifting around me and I could see things a lot more clearly. I was able to discuss things with my family that were really tough conversations at the time with what was going on. And things just became a lot easier. You know, I wasn't perfect, but where I'm going with this is basically saying, I don't think I would ever would have relied on my family to, be waiting on me, the amount you have in this. And I just wonder how much responsibility she was taking for her own care here, because from what I've read in the post, it doesn't sound like that much. And I don't blame you for feeling the way you do, because you've got to look after your own happiness as well. You've already confirmed, that your life was pretty much 10 times better when you were separated from her. And it just feels incredibly unfair to me that people are putting this on your shoulders when, they're not the ones living it. They're not the ones dealing with it day in, day out. But now we're going to move on to OP's update to find out what happened next. So it starts off. Let me start by thanking all the people who responded. There was a lot of insight, a lot of advice, and a lot of support, and while there was certainly a fair share of people just looking for an argument, insulting me, making offensive comments, or trying to rope me into something called MGTOW, which I think is men going their own way, luckily the vast majority of replies were great and stuff I could work with. Especially those who are in similar situations, and those who are in said situation but are the depressed party proved to give me some insight I sometimes did not even consider. Also, I'm sorry for not being able to respond to everyone. I really tried my best to respond, but there were so many comments I honestly couldn't keep up anymore. But rest assured, I tried to read just about every single comment, so your advice likely did not go in vain, and I appreciate it. I ended up having a really good think about my entire situation, trying to weigh out whether I would be able to give her another chance to begin with, as despite my post would give away was actually something I struggled with. I was a bit of an emotional mess after all, and honestly, I sort of lacked control over my emotions. As you might have noticed in some of my responses, sometimes I seem nostalgic, forgiving, and nice. Other times I seem vengeful, resentful, and hateful. I will admit off the bat that this is all me. Like I told people in messages, I was and still am not in the best of places emotionally. But I have been working on getting my own emotions under control the past few days, and I can say I'm in a better place than I was weeks ago. But it will certainly take some more time for me to recuperate from all of this. Now off to what people were likely looking to see. What ended up happening this week that made me decide to make an update post. Well, after all that thinking, I decided regardless of what course I would be taking, as some people suggested, it would be my decisions and my decision alone. Not the decision of my parents, her parents, friends, or people on the internet. Mine alone. A decision I would be the one living with at the end of the day. I decided I would inevitably end up regretting it all if I did not at the very least talk to my wife and get some closure. So that is exactly what I did. 2 days ago, I decided to invite her to our home to talk about our relationship, what I would be doing going forward, her depression, and so forth. Basically, just to get it all on the table. Now, it would be impossible to narrate this entire conversation, and honestly, it was about some very personal stuff, so I would not even want to, even if I could. So I will instead try to break it down and give a summary of sorts. We ended up discussing our entire relationship. I must admit it was very awkward, confronting as it was about a lot of stuff myself in particular had bottled up for so long. It was very hard for me not to start yelling. I told her I was exhausted. I told her everything we'd been trying obviously had not been working. I told her I felt like a doormat. I told her she was not the person I married. I told her these 3 months had been liberating for me. I told her I was tired of it all. I told her that I felt like she wasn't doing anything to help herself. I told her she was not doing anything around the house. I told her a marriage is supposed to be a partnership, but I felt like I was basically married to myself and that I was the only partner in this relationship. Essentially, I unloaded the stuff I'd been feeling for years by now. I told her I had a hard time not regretting the day I married her at this point, and while it obviously really hurt her to hear, she told me she knew. She knew I was unhappy. She knew she had been anything but a partner. She knew she was horrible about it all. But she felt like whatever she tried, she always ended up fearing getting better, getting demotivated to do anything, and that when she left, she almost felt like she had burdened me enough. That it wasn't for her, but for me. But that she went about it the wrong way and ended up blaming the therapist as an easy way out. While it was true the therapist had guided her in some way towards this decision, the decision she made was for the right reasons, but the explanation she provided was tailored to her, not to me. which was disregarding the therapist's advice entirely. She said she felt guilty about it all and that guilt was just making her psychological state even worse. She said she hated seeing me go to work, coming home exhausted and having to clean everything up, until I just passed out essentially, which I might add is a massive step for her, as she never admitted this. But she started admitting a lot of stuff and apologizing for a lot of things in our relationship. She said her time away made her realize how much I mean to her and how much she took for granted, and that she should have done better a long time ago. To which I told her I felt like I'd been enabling her essentially, but I tried to keep her to her medication and all of that. At the end of the day, it was always me picking up after her, which probably made it easier for her to slip back into it all. Well, after hours upon hours of talking, we ended up hugging for what seemed like over an hour before going back to talking, and she basically said she understood if I would not take her back. She understood if I did not trust her to get better. She understood that I was tired, but she asked me to give her one more chance and she would do anything for it. I have to admit, my mind immediately wanted me to go to the obvious option, which was not taking her back, not giving her a chance, but honestly, in this discussion, she was the person I was once in love with. She seemed to take ownership of things. She seemed different somehow. But I also knew the risk coming with taking her back, and honestly, I was not about to pull another Hail Mary. So I told her I would be willing to give it a shot, but it wouldn't be like before. Not at all. I told her she would have to prove she was going to put in the effort first, before we could even begin. Firstly, I told her she had to get a part-time job. I don't care what sort of job, whether it was waiting tables, at a clothing store or at some company, it is irrelevant, as long as she made sure to go every single time she was supposed to go, look presentable when going, and made sure she did her best at said job. Secondly, she said she knows I like going to the gym. As such, she would be going with me at least 3 times a week, get in shape again, get some exercise in, but most of all, be busy in a healthy way. Thirdly, she is going to help her parents around the house while she stays there. No more sitting in her room along with her thoughts, groceries, dishes, vacuuming, whatever. She was going to make an effort doing it every single day. Fourthly, as some people suggested, we were going to go on a date once a week. No more escaping, not wanting to go outside, feeling self-conscious, no more excuses. Fifthly, we were going to do couples counseling. I know we tried before, but we will try again. Sixth, she is going to go to a new therapist, not lie about anything anymore and do whatever the therapist tells her. Seventh, if the therapist suggests medication, she is going to take them every time she is supposed to take them. I will keep them with me and she will take them in front of me. No more forgetting, no more not taking them, no more complaining, and if there are any issues with them, we will try different ones, but regardless, she is going to stick to it. I told her once we're doing all that, we can go to the next stage of repairing our relationship. But until she does them and keeps them up for a good few months, there is not a single chance I will continue our relationship. And yes, I know ultimatums are a taboo on relationship advice, but I don't think I have much of a choice. To my surprise, she actually agreed, and to my even bigger surprise, despite it only having been 2 days, she was actually helping her mother and father around the house yesterday and has been looking for jobs. Her dad also said she seemed a lot more cheerful. Now I know there is a long road left, and I know there is a good chance this won't work out, and that I should not cheer too early, but honestly I'm hoping I get my wife back, and I felt I owe it to myself to at least allow her this one last chance. Call me an idiot for giving her this chance, but well, perhaps I am an idiot. That was my update. I'm not sure whether I will make another. I'd honestly not even planned on making this one. I want to thank the people who responded to my other post again for their insight and advice, and I hope you all live happily ever after or something. Ha. And I gotta say, I took a sneak peek at the comments after that update, and you know, people were really worried about this relationship and don't think it's going to last because of the ultimatums, OP, having to monitor it as well again, having control of the medication, which doesn't sound like a great idea at all, and people just basically saying that it's set up to fail. But what do you guys make of this one? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And before you do go, I just want to finish off with a sweet little interaction I found on Reddit between two people. So SVDM was talking about their dad and said, "My dad can't work anymore due to ill health. He receives a little money from the government, just enough to enable him to get by. One of his biggest passions before he had to finish work was building model railways. He has two. Both are still unfinished. He had to stop working on them because he no longer had the money to continue. When I took over looking after his finances, I started to transfer some extra money from my wages into his bank account so he could start working on it again. I told him there has been a rise in his benefits, as I know he would never accept the money from me. It isn't much, but at least now he can buy himself 1 or 2 bits every month to keep himself busy and happy. And that, for me was sweet in itself, that he was doing that for his father. But Grab My Rooster then replied to that one and said, "Hey, I work in the rail industry, and if he wanted some plans or other cool stuff to look over, well, I think it's cool. It's really just manuals and shit for equipment. PM me and I'll throw a package together. It's not nearly as cool as model trains, but who knows, it may be interesting." And I just found that interesting. The story itself was really sweet, and then someone replying as well, coming in with that they will put a package together to send to someone. As always, disclaimer, always look after yourself on the internet. You never know who you're interacting with, and be safe and all that kind of stuff. But there really is some wonderful people out there. I gotta say, I found myself looking at model trains the other day. I thought, oh no. If you sit on my Twitter, I've been posting like Christmas photos where I was walking around London and looking at all the different lights and stuff. I went in one of these toy stores and one of them's got like one of these model train sets. They're expensive, man. I was just sat there staring at them thinking, oh, could I? Don't do it yet, Mark. Don't do it. But anyway, and if you've got pictures of your own, don't forget sending me on Twitter. And just a huge thank you for spending your time with me today, getting involved in the stories. Your love, support, and time always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so, so much. And hopefully I will see you in the next one. Take care and much love.